Hello and welcome to City Corner. I'm your host, Todd Blackstock. On today's show, we're going to discuss cicadas, the Missouri Botanical Gardens, and the 1904 World's Fair exhibit. So stay with us for this and much more coming up next on STL TV. We're pleased to have with us in our first segment today, Todd Yankoski and Daria McKelvey. Now, Todd, you're with the Butterfly House. What's your main function? And you have a pretty important title.
I'm the senior entomologist at the Butterfly House, and we have a large collection of different insects and butterflies, and I get to take care of all of them in my day-to-day job.
Perfect. And Daria, you're with the Botanical Gardens. What's your main function there?
I'm the supervisor for the Kemper Center for Home Gardening, and I teach people how not to kill their plants.
Awesome. Well, Tad, every year, this time of year, or, coming up in April, May, cicadas join us and they make their noises and they do their thing, but something special is happening in 2024.
Absolutely. This is the year for our 13-year periodical cicada emergence. Every year, there's a few cicadas you'll hear throughout the summer and the fall. But this year, starting in mid-May, we are going to have billions of periodical cicadas come out of the ground.
Wow. So are these cicadas, are they harmful to people?
No. A lot of people are nervous about them, the effects they may have on their pets or their children. These animals have no threat to people. They have no venom. They can't sting or bite. They may be a nuisance because they could be loud or be all over the place, all around your house, but there's no direct harm to you.
So how loud can a cicada be? Because I hear they can get up there pretty high.
A single cicada can be loud. When you have millions to billions in a small area, they get very loud. Some people compare the volume of their singing to that of a motorcycle or a lawnmower.
Wow. So Daria, how would the cicadas this year affect any of the events or things going on at the Botanical Gardens or any other events that you work around town?
Yeah, since they're going to be emerging during May and June when we have a lot of events going on, you may be out with them. They'll be all around you. So that's something to just keep in mind as you're heading outdoors.
Now, are they harmful to like trees and foliage and things like that? Or is there a time and a place to plant things, in surrounding with these cicadas?
Yeah, so for your mature trees, they are going to cause a little bit of damage, but it's actually negligible. The tree has enough canopy to compensate. What happens is the female, she oviposits on limbs that are about the size of a pencil, and she'll lay about, she could lay up to about 500 to 600 eggs all along the stem. And so that gets into the vascular system of the tree and can cause death on the end of that stem wherever she lays. So the larger trees might see some what's called flagging, so tips of branches are going to die, but overall that's not going to cause any major damage to the tree itself. It's going to be fine. What the concern is for smaller trees, younger trees and shrubs that have the pencil-shaped or pencil-sized diameter. They don't have as much canopy, which then, if the female does lay eggs, could cause a lot of damage and then really impact your plant before it has a chance to really get going.
So it's probably better off not to plant anything new during the cicada mating or coming out party they're having, I guess?
Yeah, it's best to wait till after that time frame. Maybe schedule for like a fall planting as opposed to summertime.
So Tad, what about the different animals? You've got birds and you have other insects and you've got, rodents that really, they feed off insects in the food chain. How will this affect them?
This is going to be great. If you're a bird or a mouse or something that might eat these insects, this is a party for you. These animals come out of the ground by the billion, and their strategy is something called prey satiation, where they basically sit around and say, if you're going to eat me, that's okay. You might eat my brothers, but so my brothers or sisters or cousins are going to survive because you're going to run out of room in your belly. You're going to get full. And then my brothers and sisters will get to mate, and that's when they start the next generation. You're going to see a boom of baby birds and other animals because there's so much food injected into the food chain from these cicadas.
So this is like a buffet for animals.
All you can eat.
All you can eat. So you say with this, with all this extra food, so the birds, they might multiply more, and squirrels and other aardvarks and things, they're going to
absolutely
probably have
you're going to see a baby
population
boom.
growth?
Yeah.
No
You'll see a
kidding.
baby boom in the coming years, and it's a trickle effect where you'll have more baby birds, and perhaps things like hawks that may feed baby birds will have a good year the following year, and so on. So it really injects life into the food web.
So this is great for our environment and the food chain. Why does it only happen like every 200 years or so often? Is it just the way the moon aligns with the stars, or?
So here in St. Louis, we have 13-year cicadas, and they come out every 13 years. In other parts of the country, there are 17-year cicadas that stay underground for 17 years. Famously, this year is one of the first times in hundreds of years where the 13-year and the 17-year cicadas are going to be coming out at the same time in different parts of the country, but across countrywide, there's 2 broods or groups coming out. And because they're an odd number like that, they only overlap every couple hundred years.
Now, there's some small countries around the world that, they don't have the food chain. They don't have, the meat and the pork and the chickens like we have here in the United States. And eating insects abroad is a pretty normal thing.
Absolutely.
And it's actually coming to a menu near you in the United States as delegations, from around the world come and they share different, things they do with society and their cultures. And cicadas are one of those things that could be on a menu near you.
Well, entomophagy, eating insects, is becoming more and more common worldwide. In many parts of the world, it's just food, it's just dinner. But in the United States, it's very much a growing industry. And it's something we will be doing at the Butterfly House. You can collect the nymphs of the cicadas as they come out of the ground. A lot of people compare them to soft-shell crabs, which are crabs that have just molted, and it's a good tender time to eat the crabs. It's a tender time to harvest those cicadas for food as well.
Because is it like a mindset? Because, people go to New Orleans and Bourbon Street and they eat crawdads and crawfish and things like that. And people eat soft-shell crab. Sure. I remember eating soft-shell crab the first time, and my friend whose father was making it was a doctor. And my buddy Paul's like, I'm not eating spiders. There's no way. I've been in a restaurant where people ordered soft-shell crab, and they're like, well, how do you open it? It's like you don't, you eat it. Yeah. So is it a mindset maybe at first?
Absolutely.
To accept it?
We do a lot of cooking demos at different events using insects. And I tell people, the first thing you got to do is get over the 6 inches between your ears. Once you get over that little bit of real estate up there, you try it for the first time, you're going to come back for seconds or thirds, because a lot of these animals are actually very tasty. We often start with crickets. We joke that crickets are the gateway bug. Once you try a cricket, you might come and try something else. Well, maybe this year we'll be using cicadas for that.
I'm thinking of some recipes, maybe saute some extra virgin olive oil up, or put a little garlic and some diced onions, saute them up, put them over a little rice or pasta maybe?
Yep, we make a lot of desserts with them too. You can make chocolate chirp cookies, or with the cicadas, you can skewer them up and make caramel that goes with them really well. You can dip them like fondue. There's a lot of great things you can do with them.
Let's talk a little bit about the botanical gardens. You do a lot of great things in there. What's your main activity you do there for them?
For me personally, it's giving out gardening advice and trying to show people the best way to take care of their plants. That's pretty much what we do throughout the center.
The Botanical Gardens is very impressive. People in St. Louis love to go there, but when people come visit, I guarantee it's in the top 3 or 5 things that people tell visitors to town to go to. The last time I was there, the Climatron was very impressive. You had the Japanese garden. Are there any new features over the last few years that you'd like to discuss, or some upcoming things that may be very interesting for our viewers?
Yeah, sure. If you haven't been to the garden in a while, we have a brand new visitor center. It is beautiful, beautifully done. We expanded our landscape, expanded a lot of our opportunities to hold events and different activities in that area. So it's a really impressive feat, especially just showing how much the garden has grown. We outgrew our old Ridgeway building, which I know many people are we're fond of. But we see more people coming in every day, and so we have to continue to expand so we can invite more people to come.
The Climatron is actually like a rainforest in Brazil or something, and I don't think if you haven't seen this in person that you can really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's so cool because like in the wintertime, when there's not much going outside, you still can go into the Climatron and enjoy a tropical rainforest. Our staff in there, even during the winter, they work in t-shirts because
Really?
It's so humid. Yeah.
So how many different species would you say are inside the Climatron?
A lot, a lot of really unique specimens. Some of them, everything from we have what's called the double coconut, which is produces the world's largest seed, which can get up to 44 pounds, to some of the smallest orchids, cicadas, just things that you would not have the opportunity to see anywhere else is right here in St. Louis. So it's just a phenomenon, an interesting phenomenon. And of course, our horticulturists, the other piece of the garden is that we are also trying to conserve plants. We're not just a garden that is very pretty, which we are, but we also have teams all across the world. Even our horticulture team, they go to study plants all across the world to make sure that we have them for future generations and prevent their destruction. So we're heavily involved with horticulture conservation and trying to preserve these rare specimens and learning about them here at the garden.
Just down the way is Shaw Park, which is amazing. It's got like the labyrinth and some things like that. Do you work in conjunction with Shaw Park at all, or is that just a coincidence that you're almost right next to each other?
The Tower Grove House? Yeah, Tower Grove Park was founded by Henry Shaw as well.
Shaw.
He did the garden, and then he also did Tower Grove Park as well. So just right across the way.
Now, is the Botanical Garden open year-round?
Yes, it is. So you can come in spring, summer, fall, or winter, and I actually encourage you to come at all 4 seasons because there's always something interesting to see. Like even in the winter, like our Japanese garden, it's meant to look beautiful in all 4 seasons. So you have to come multiple times to really get the beauty of this place.
I guess to see the different seasons.
Yes.
And the butterfly house as well. Do you work outside the butterfly house, or do you pretty much stick with that? That's your main focus?
We have an excellent horticulture team that works in our outdoor butterfly garden. So in addition to our tropical butterfly area where you can see over 1,000 tropical butterflies at any given day throughout the year, we have a huge native outdoor garden that attracts native butterflies. We use it as a model for people who want to know how to attract their own pollinators and butterflies to their own backyard. We can go out and steal some of our ideas and see what we're doing with native plants to attract native pollinators.
What a great opportunity in West St. Louis County. Right now, if you're out and about and you don't have a chance to get to the city, you can head over to Fowles Park and check out the butterfly house just pretty much most days of the week.
Absolutely. We're open every day except Monday, 10 to 4.
And Fowles Park is a beautiful park as well. It's not just the butterfly house. You have a beautiful park surrounding that as well, right off of Olive, close to Clarkson and Highway 40.
Guests can make a whole day right in the park with many things to do with our playground. There's a carousel, and then come see the butterfly house.
Is there some information you could share with us, their website?
You can go to butterflyhouse.org to learn all about the different activities and events we have going on throughout the summer. And then if you want to learn about the park itself, Fowles Park as part of the St. Louis County Park System, they've got a lot of great information as well.
Perfect. And before we let you go, Daria, what's the best way to get a hold of the Botanical Gardens? And are there any other events or anything else you'd like to mention about the Botanical Gardens that we haven't shared yet?
Sure. If anybody wants to reach out to us, you can go to mobot.org or MissouriBotanicalGarden.org. Also, if you have gardening questions, you can go to gardeninghelp.org and contact us and my staff, and we can help you out with any plant-related questions. And in terms of the spring, we have a lot of things currently blooming right now. So if you, our tulips are still looking good. A lot of flowering plants are coming into view. So we're gearing up for a lot of things in the spring and also in the summer.
Perfect. And Tad, any final thoughts before we let you go? I'm looking forward to next time you come and bringing me a cicada dish, maybe sauteed.
Absolutely. Bugs are better with bugger. We'll make that happen. We'll cook some up for you.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys, for joining us. We appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break now, but stay with us on STL TV as Adam Kloppe from the 1904 World's Fair exhibit will join us. Stay with us. We'll return right after this.
Eyes forward. Don't drive distracted.
Visitors and residents love the St. Louis Zoo because it's free. There's a train, a carousel, opportunities to make new friends, and plenty of fun learning experiences with the animals 363 days a year. So come and experience St. Louis.
I'm Belinda, and this is Willard, and we were adopted in 2021. When we first met Todd, he was singing a song, and I was like, wow, look at this kid with the biggest smile, and he has a big heart to match.
The energy you give Todd, you get it back from Todd.
Yeah.
Todd's a joy.
Yes, he
Todd's
is.
really is a great joy.
I love him. You and you.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And welcome back to City Corner. I'm your host, Todd Blackstock. Joining us now is historian Adam Kloppe with the Historical Society and Museum here in St. Louis. And Adam, thank you so much for joining us today. And the Historical Society in St. Louis has been around since, what, 1866?
Yeah, we've been around for a long time. We have a long history ourselves, so.
I mean, that's going back to like Abraham Lincoln. So our Historical Society goes all the way to then, and that's way before the 1904 World's Fair.
Yeah, and we've been collecting, ever since then. So we have a very rich repository of, documents and artifacts that help to explain why St. Louis is the way it is, how we got to where we are. And of course, a lot of our artifacts also predate that time, right? We were collecting things that are much older than that time as well. So we have a huge collection of artifacts over on Skinker that help us bring stories of St. Louis history to life for all of our visitors.
What would be some of the things available that were preserved from, say, like the 1860s or 1800s?
Oh gosh, we have documents from businesses from around that time talking about, the kinds of things that they do. We have things from, things that were produced in St. Louis, beer bottles from Anheuser-Busch and stuff like that help talk about how this place developed, right? We have things like street paver stones and things like that talk about the infrastructure of the city. So we have a wide gamut of things that really help explicate all sorts of things about St. Louis history.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because sometimes you see when they go build a new road or take some concrete out, there's cobblestones underneath. So there's almost like a whole city under our city right now. Yeah.
There's always new things to learn, new things to explore. You never know where you're going to encounter a new piece of St. Louis history.
And the arts grounds. I mean, before that was a major business thoroughfare, and a lot of people lived there. There was like a tent city, I think, at one point down there.
And the footprint of the arts grounds is essentially the old St. Louis from back when St. Louis was founded in the 1760s. That footprint is essentially how big St. Louis was when it was founded.
Yeah, that was kind of like the landing area and where it all began.
Absolutely.
With the settlers and everybody. Well, I tell you, St. Louis is really famous still to this day for two things, a lot of things, but the 1904 World's Fair, in conjunction the same year, the 1904 Olympics. I mean, tell us about that period of time and why it's so special for St. Louis.
The 1904 World's Fair is one of the signature events in St. Louis's history. It ran from April of 1904 to December of 1904, and during that time, over 19 million people visited the grounds of the 1904 World's Fair. And they saw goods and people and things from all over the world, things from China and Japan and Brazil and Great Britain and France. These countries brought in, pieces of art that they made, things that they could manufacture, plants they could grow, things that explain their agriculture, right? To try to encourage people to visit those countries and to learn more about those countries and to encourage businesses in the U.S. to trade with those countries, right? So it's this huge multinational event. It's really a defining event in St. Louis's history.
St. Louis was grand back in the day. It was like, people would dress up and go to the World's Fair, and they'd put their hats on and their dresses and everything like that. And it's got such a cool history with all the different 1904 World's Fair books and things like that. Can you maybe describe to our viewers, the backdrop of the St. Louis World's Fair and then how you guys have preserved it in your new exhibit?
Sure. So the 1904 World's Fair was an event you really can't visit today, right? They built all these buildings, hundreds and hundreds of buildings in Forest Park, and then sort of west of Forest Park out to Big Bend Boulevard, where Big Bend Boulevard is today. But most of those buildings were built out of a temporary substance called staff. They were meant to be torn down. They're only meant to last for a few years. So you can't really visit that site today. So really the best way to try to relive parts of the 1904 World's Fair is to come to an exhibit like the one we have at the Missouri Historical Society that opens on April 27th, where we're going to have, artifacts from the 1904 World's Fair, and we also have a scale model that's going to show the entire grounds of the 1904 World's Fair, all those buildings, shown at a 1 to 400 scale that really will give you a sense of what the World's Fair was, how big it was, where it was, and it gives you a sense of all these great stories you hear about the World's Fair, about ice cream cones and Ferris wheels and all that stuff, exactly where all those stories took place.
So how could you describe the scale to the exhibit? Because it's kind of like a lifelike what the 1904 World's Fair was. How big is it in the area where it will be shown?
So the scale model itself is about 16 feet by 25 feet. It's a really big scale model. It's at a 1 to 400 scale, but trust me, you can see so many immaculate details on these buildings. And we worked really hard to get this as close as we could to the real thing. Our team at the Missouri Historical Society and our fabrication partners at PGAV, which is they're a design firm that work on things like SeaWorld and things like that. They helped us to make this model, and their team and our team sat down and we went through old maps, old photographs, old blueprints, fire insurance maps, all this stuff, World's Fair buildings, to try to get them as accurate as possible. And then they're wizards over there. I don't know how to do any of this stuff. They built all that using a computer program and then 3D printed it so that we could put it onto a model and make it as close as we can get.
So there must be all kinds of different people working on this right now. I mean, they're designers, and pick it up from there, the array of people helping with this project.
Oh yeah, it's been a labor of love for dozens and dozens of people, and we're so excited that it's going to open very shortly here on April 27th so that people can finally get in to see it.
So I guess you have landscapers, architects, designers.
Yeah, we did have to, go try to find GIS data, to discover, because they had to grade a lot of ground for the World's Fair, because Forest Park lived up to its name before the 1904 World's Fair. That western half of the park was mostly forest. And so they had to clear a lot of land and grade a lot of land to make it flat enough to build the buildings. They actually took the River Des Peres, which flowed freely through parts of Forest Park at that time, and they moved it underground in 1903 or so to make sure that the fair could go up. So it took a lot of work from those people. So then they didn't keep detailed records necessarily on how all that stuff changed. So we had to go back and try to find topographical maps, from before and after to figure out exactly how the grounds changed, and that's reflected in the model.
How many nations do you think embarked upon the USA and St. Louis during the St. Louis World's Fair?
It was 62 nations came to St. Louis for the 1904 World's Fair. Some of them created, they had a varying level of sort of presence in St. Louis. So some of them built these, sort of ornate buildings where they housed things from their state government. And then there was also these grand palaces built throughout the fairgrounds, a palace of agriculture, a palace of electricity, a palace of machinery. And they might have, exhibits within those halls in addition to their own state building. Some countries didn't have the resources to build a state building, and they just had presences within those various halls. But overall, 62 nations came here. And it was really a place, if you came to the World's Fair in 1904, it was like going on a vacation of the world. Like, you could go and see all these places, and especially those places that built their own buildings, they might bring in, vegetation and things like that from those countries to make those sites feel a little bit more like you were visiting, Berlin or Beijing or something.
So what's so special about 2024?
Well, this is the 120th anniversary of the 1904 World's Fair. And, the exhibit we're opening, I think, is really befitting of an anniversary that's that big, right? The 120th anniversary. This is a World's Fair exhibit like one you've never seen before. Even if you've come to the History Museum, we had a World's Fair exhibit up for many years before this. Even if you feel like, yeah, I came and saw that, you need to come again because this is completely different, and it really is the closest you can get to 1904 since the fair closed on December 1st, 1904.
You know, what I appreciate about it is there's transparency as well, because 120 years ago, our world was a completely different place as it is now. I mean, there was countries that were not very well developed at all.
Sure.
And there was a Philippine exhibit back then, and they brought people out of Philippines, and may have brought them out from living in the forest or living in their habitat, and they brought them and their habitat here, and they were actually like viewed. I wouldn't say like the zoo animals, but they were brought in here as an attraction.
Yeah. So the Philippine Village was one of the most popular exhibits at the 1904 World's Fair. It was a 47-acre site on the fairgrounds itself, and over 1,000 Filipinos were brought here and had their lives and bodies put on display, essentially for the amusement of people going to the fair. And the people from the Philippines, they didn't have a lot of say in how their lives and their bodies were depicted for those fairgoers. They had rules about what clothes they could wear, what the places where they had to stay when the fairgoers were in there, what those places had to look like. And that exhibit itself was actually organized by the United States government. Shortly before the 1904 World's Fair, in 1898, the U.S. actually gained the Philippines as an overseas colonial territory. And it was the first time the U.S. had engaged in overseas colonialism. And there was a lot of debate internally within the U.S. as to whether this was something the U.S. should engage in. And so the way that exhibit worked, they didn't show, fairly modern buildings in Manila or something. They wanted to try to show the Philippines as a place that was quote unquote backward to justify a continued U.S. imperial presence there. So that's what that whole exhibit was meant to reflect. And of course, today we recognize that as something that's incredibly racist and problematic. And it's left a long legacy, not just for the fair, but for the people it's affected. We've actually reached out to a local woman, a Filipino-American artist who lives in St. Louis. And what she discovered is that she lives actually on the site of the Philippine reservation.
No kidding.
Her great-grandfather was a waiter and a guide at that reservation at the fair, so her art talks a lot about that.
So April 27th, there's going to be African dance group. You can learn Chinese, Japanese tea parties, and for more information,
please visit us at mohistory.org for all that information, as well as our hours and ways to contact us.
All right, Adam, thank you so much for joining us on City Corner, and we're so excited to get out and see that event. It's going to be great for St. Louis this summer.
I can't wait to see you there.
All right, that's our show for today. We'd especially like to thank our studio guests for joining us, and we'd like to thank you for watching City Corner on STL TV. Experience St. Louis.